you're going to have trainings and you're going to have project tasks to do, and then you have assignments, just 2 assignments you're going to do. And then for each of the project tasks, you submit your project tasks and then we'll review. So the essence is this: I just don't want you to do your project tasks and submit. I want us to review so that firsthand you get to see things you did not really articulate well or document properly, and then make corrections on that so you can get it done better. Then these 2 assignments that has to do with business requirement documents and functional requirement documents, it kind of encompasses what you do as a business analyst as well. And the reason is in business analysis, or should I say in project management, the 2 most common models in project management is waterfall model and agile model. As a business analyst rather, beg your pardon. As a business analyst, when you find yourself in an agile environment, you'll be doing all of this, from this down to this, from your HLR, that is your product backlog, down to your epics, user stories. You also design your models, your wireframes, and your mockups. But if you find yourself in a waterfall environment, that's waterfall project environment, as a BA, you'll be doing all of this: business requirement documentation, functional requirement documentation, your wireframes, and your mockups. That is what you'll be doing. Most times, when you find yourself in a fully functional cross-sectional team, you will not be doing these 2, wireframes and mockups. At most, you might just end up doing wireframes, designing some screens. That's when you find yourself in a fully functional cross-sectional team or cross-functional team. You'll be doing, you will find yourself, you won't be doing wireframes and mockups. All you do in an agile environment is these 3, and all you do in a waterfall environment is these 2. So, but that does not take away the fact that in the course of your career, you might end up coming across all of this. So that is why in doing this training, you're going to take you through everything that has to do with this. I'll teach you how to document a business requirements document, which is BRD, how to document an FRD. I'll also share templates with you. I'll teach you how to write user stories, epics, and acceptance criteria, how to draw process flow diagrams, how to design wireframes, and how to design high-level or high-fidelity mockups. So I'll teach you all of that. So you are all-rounded, or you're well-rounded, in the sense that wherever you find yourself, whether in an agile or in a waterfall environment or in a mix or hybrid, you'll be able to function optimally as a business analyst. Let me check if Temi has joined so I can. Okay, she hasn't joined. So that is the tasks and also the assignments you'll be doing with respect to the projects. Now, for the calendar or timetable for this program or for this cohort. So today we'll be starting with introduction to business analysis and also a sneak peek into project management. And then next week we'll start with what did I do here? Okay, next week we'll start with business analysis, planning and monitoring, how you plan and also monitor your business analysis activities in a project as a BA. And then I'll then introduce the project you'll be doing, which is a project introduction. Then the 3rd week, your project will actually start. You start with your project work. So you'll be submitting your tasks on Fridays, and the review of your tasks will happen on Saturday. So you submit your task 1 on Friday, 6th of September. That's for task 1, and we'll review it on Saturday. So after the training that Saturday, after we've finished requirements management, then we'll go ahead to review the task. So the reviewing of the task is you make a presentation of what you've submitted, and then I make correction. And why I want the submission to come before the review is this: when you submit, I want to take time to look at it and then point out the errors within your tasks, so that then when you make your presentation, now the essence or the reason why I want you guys to make your presentation is that as a BA, you're going to be doing a lot of presentations to stakeholders. You're going to be doing a lot of communications with stakeholders. So this is also opportunity for me to also help mentor or guide you in terms of your presentation skills as a BA. So you're going to present your tasks, and then I provide corrections or assist with guidance on where you did not get right. So that is how we are going to be going in terms of the project. So the project is going to be the program is very tasking, and I really need you to give it your best. As in, I need you to give it your best. I've had in previous times candidates that have come on the program and they gave it their very best, and today they are singing their success stories. So if you want to also get the best or even get more out of the program, you need to give it your time. It could be time taxing, but for the next 12 weeks, just set out your time, set out hours within a week, at least 5 hours within a week to do your project, to work on your project. That would help you, and that help you go a very long way. I don't know if you have any question before I walk you through the topics we'll be going through in the course of the program. Do you have any question? Let me pause and see if I can take questions.
Yes, I do. Is it possible? Are you going to take us part of the project management stuff? Are we going to dive into a bit of project management if need be? Did you hear that?
If you're going to dive into a bit of project management.
Oh, yes. I thought I was just talking to myself. Yes.
Okay, so the program, or should I say, this program is exclusively on business analysis. Okay. So why I talked about project management is because as a BA, most times, often and on, most times, like 80% of the time you'll be working, or should I say 90% of the time you'll be working in a project, right? So it's also good for you to have an idea of what project management is. You'll not be doing project management as a BA, but it's good for you to have an idea of what project management is so that you know the different phases in a project, what is expected of you as a BA, what will you be doing as a business analyst in this particular phase, whether you find yourself in an agile environment with respect to Scrum, or you find yourself in a waterfall environment. So that is why I just said it, I titled it as an overview to project management as it relates to business analysis. Is that okay? Does that answer your question?
Sounds good.
All right. Victor, any question?
Oh, no, no questions.
All right. So we'll be starting shortly. Let me just pull up my PowerPoint. So this is Uptrust Business Analysis Guide or Business Analysis Program or Training, depending on how you call it. So it's project-based and it's all around business analysis. So areas we're going to be covering in this program or in this training is first, the general knowledge you need to have as a BA, and then the core competencies you need to have. Let me project so it can be clearer for you guys. So first is the general knowledge you need to have as a business analyst, then the core competencies you need to have as a business analyst, and also the complementary skills you need to have as a business analyst. So first, the general knowledge has to do with you understanding what business analysis is, understanding what project management is, understanding software development lifecycle, understanding business analysis, planning and monitoring, and also understanding requirements management. Now, the core competencies you need to have as a business analyst has to do with your development of a business case, building of or developing of business models, eliciting requirement, or you should call it requirement elicitation or requirement gathering, requirement analysis that has to do with your specification of requirements, has to do with your user stories, has to do with your documentation of requirements, then your requirements modeling, your strategy analysis, and your solution evaluation. So these are like the core competence skills you need to have or you need to possess as a business analyst. And then your complementary skills you need to have in today's world has to do with your user persona, has to do with wireframing, high-level mockup, prototyping, even data analysis, financial modeling. There are so many complementary skills you could have you need to have as a business analyst. But these are like the most common ones. You could go ahead to learn data analysis with Excel. That's another almost 10 hours course you can do. You can go ahead to learn SQL. There's like almost another 16 hours course you can do. Yeah, so there are so many complementary skills depending on the project you find yourself, depending on the organization you find yourself. But these are the areas we're going to be covering in the course of this program. So today we'll be starting with introduction to business analysis and also looking at project management as well. So for today, how we're going to do it is when I finish a particular section, you can then ask questions. So feel free to write down your questions if you have any question or jot it down somewhere. When we finish introduction to business analysis, I'll give opportunity for you to ask questions and I'll respond accordingly. So we'll be looking at what is business analysis, business analysis, core concept models, key terminologies, stakeholders, key terminologies in and stakeholder definitions in terms of business analysis, requirement classification schema, and also looking at requirement and design cycle. What is the requirement and design life cycle? How do they relate with each other? So we'll be starting with what business analysis is, or what is business analysis. But before we start, I'd like to get a good understanding from you both. I want to know our level of understanding of what business analysis is. Victor, Motu, anyone can respond. Can you hear me?
Hear you.
Yeah, so I said I'd like to get a response on what our own understanding of business analysis is.
Well, I know that is it's about change. It's about practicing change in an organization where you'd understand the needs and you may recommend solutions so that you'll be able to deliver value to the stakeholders.
Okay, thank you for that. So thanks for that explanation. So let's take a look at what business analysis is. You gave a very good explanation. You gave a very good description of business analysis. So business analysis is the practice of enabling change within an enterprise, but first defining the needs, as you said, recommending solutions that deliver value to stakeholders. Business analysis enables an enterprise to articulate the needs and also the rationale for whatever change they are about to undertake, and as well to design and describe solutions that can deliver value. So most times enterprises point out a need. That need could be a problem, and the need could be an opportunity. A problem in the sense that a problem is out there in the organization, or there's a problem in the market, a problem in the industry to solve, right? That can be a source of a need, right? Or an opportunity in the sense that there's a market opportunity for the organization to embrace, to grab, to to figure out and see how to get the best out of it. So you need to be able to articulate those needs, and also why the change, the rationale behind the change. Ask questions, probing questions to know why we need to undertake that change. And when you're able to understand that, then you can now design and then describe solutions that you feel and that you're sure that can also recommend value. Business analysis is performed on a variety of initiatives within an organization. Various initiatives you perform in business analysis. Can you hear me?
It went off a bit.
Okay, sorry. Initiatives in this aspects are what we call projects, right? They may be strategic, they may be tactical or operational. And as a BA, you may be required to work within the boundaries of a project or throughout enterprise evolution and continuous improvements. Business analysis can be used to understand the current state of anything, like the current state of a solution, the current state of a process, the current state of a product, the current state of a business, of an organization, whatever. You can use business analysis to understand the current state. You can also use it to define the future state and also determine the activities that you require or that are required to move from that current to the future state. So what are the different sectors of business analysis? As I mentioned earlier, we have the tactical analysis, which has to do with IT business analysis, has to do with decision analysis of business rules. You find yourself doing a lot of things that has to do with user experience, product management, and data analysis. And then we also have the strategic analysis. Strategic analysis is much more involved in enterprise analysis, much more involved in market analysis, business intelligence, management consulting, business cases. And the last of it, we have the operational analysis. Operational analysis is all about process improvements, all about production support. So when I was introducing myself, I made mention of the fact that over the years, in my previous places of work, I've had opportunity to do a lot of tactical analysis, a lot of projects, implementations, delivery, and all of that. But in my current role, which is much more strategic, for myself doing a lot of organizational structuring, organizational business strategy, and all of that. So depending on the organization you find yourself, also depending on the projects you find yourself or you're currently doing. Sometimes you could have a mix of tactical and strategic analysis to do. Sometimes it could just be only tactical analysis you're going to be doing. Sometimes you could start with operational analysis and then move into tactical analysis, or you start from operational analysis and move into strategic analysis. So it all depends. And some other times it's only operational analysis you're going to find yourself doing, in the sense of when you're doing business process improvement or your analysis, you find yourself doing basically operation analysis. So those are the three broad sectors of business analysis. And then we have the processes, like for every business analysis activity or for majorly all your business analysis activities, what are the processes you follow, or what are the common processes we follow as business analysts in delivering our projects? The first thing is enterprise analysis. So as I said earlier, you can start your projects with strategy analysis and then strategic analysis, and then go ahead into tactical analysis or into operational analysis. So you could start with operational and go ahead with tactical and what have you. So we have enterprise analysis, where you get to analyze the enterprise, the organization. What are the capabilities? What are the limitations? What are the opportunities, right, within the enterprise? And most times, not all projects start with enterprise analysis, but for a typical project, you need to start with enterprise analysis. And then we have the requirement planning and management. After you've analyzed the enterprise, then you need to plan your requirement. This is where your requirement planning and monitoring comes in. You plan your requirements. You also plan how you're going to manage the requirement all throughout the course of the project. And then the next, we have your requirement elicitation. You go out there to gather requirements, gather data, elicit your requirements from various stakeholders, sources, materials, and systems and solutions, platforms, or even from the website. You elicit requirements, as much requirements as possible. Requirement elicitation is very, very exhaustive. You elicit as much requirement as possible. There's nothing like enough requirements in business analysis. There's nothing like enough requirement. Requirement is never enough, right? You keep on ensuring that you elicit as much as possible. You make it as simple as possible. Then after eliciting your requirements, then you do your requirement analysis and modeling. Now, what this is where you document your requirements. You analyze those requirements you've elicited, you specify them, you model them, you document those requirements so that I can easily communicate or translate them to reasonable and understandable concepts that your various stakeholders will be able to grasp. And then after requirement analysis, you now go into requirement communication and collaboration. You communicate your requirements. You also collaborate with your stakeholders in the course of the initiative to ensure that they get a better understanding of your requirements. And then at the end of it, you have your solution evaluation. So after you've done all of this and the solution has been implemented, you then start your solution evaluation activities, whereby you evaluate if the solution is delivering value to the organization. You look at the limitations of the solutions. You also look at various things or other activities or metrics that you've set, performance measures that you've set for the solution, and how to improve the profits that stakeholders or the value that stakeholders are getting from the solution. So having known what business analysis is and the sectors of business analysis and the process of business analysis, then I think it's best you know who a business analyst is. And he or she is basically someone who is responsible for, first of all, discovering, analyzing, and synthesizing information from a variety of sources within an enterprise. And just like I said, analyzing, discovering, and synthesizing information is all about requirement elicitation and requirement analysis. And this phase of business analysis is an ongoing, continuous phase that you continually carry out, you continually execute in the course of any initiative you find yourself. And by the time you are done with all of these, and then you have your documentation whereby you recommend solutions that will deliver value to your stakeholders. The business analyst has a lot of responsibilities, a lot of things he or she are expected to deliver, or a lot of roles you're expected to play within the project. And some of the roles or some of the major responsibilities of business analysts in a project or in an initiative include, but not limited to, understanding the problems and goals of the enterprise. So you need to know what are the problems, what are the opportunities, what are the goals, what are the objectives of the enterprise, of the organization. Also analyzing the needs and solutions. So I'll be able to understand the problems, and problems make up the needs, right? I'll be able to understand the goals, the objectives, which make up the needs of the enterprise, of the organization. So you get to analyze those needs. You get to analyze possible solutions. They get to come up with strategies. You develop strategies to get to the solution, strategies to move from the problem to the solutions. And then you don't just go ahead and then you document and design and develop all of that. You're also involved in the implementation. Thereby, you drive the change, you drive the implementation of the initiative by collaborating with stakeholders, managing stakeholders, communicating with stakeholders within the various organizations or within the aspect of the project. And then, as I said, you facilitate stakeholder collaboration. So these responsibilities help you to be able to drive value or deliver value to your stakeholders in whatever initiative you find yourself. But for you to effectively deliver this value, or for you to effectively solve problems, or probably engage in whatever initiative you find yourself, it is very important for you as a business analyst for you to understand what the core concepts are in business analysis. So for a business analyst, whatever initiative you find yourself, whatever project you find yourself, what are the core concepts that are expected of you to ensure that you adhere to those concepts to deliver your project successfully? Most times let me use, for instance, our educational backgrounds, maybe first degree. When you are studying a particular course in the university, there are core concepts within that course. Let me use chemistry. When we are doing chemistry in schools, then there are core concepts in chemistry, things like elements. There are things that you always encounter all through your lifetime as a chemist, things like molecules, things like atoms. There are things that you always encounter all through your lifetime as a chemist or a chemistry practitioner or a chemical practitioner. Same thing with physics and same thing with other fields. You know things of force of gravitation, things such as mass, things such as time, distance, displacement. These are core concepts that you will continually work with in your day-to-day activities as a professional in that particular field. So also in business analysis, no matter the initiative you've are involved in, no matter the initiative, and I repeat it the third time, no matter the initiative you are involved in, these core concepts must be present and must be well defined and articulated. Else, you stand a risk of running into problems and difficulties in your project. So you must be able to find and articulate these core concepts. Sorry, give me a minute. My data mode device is battery is running low. Let me switch to another one. Sorry. Let me switch to another one. Okay. Can you hear me now? Am I clear? Or am I
Yes,
back?
oh yeah, you're back.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about the timeouts. I just noticed, I just got the, what do you call it now? The notification, and I needed to switch so I won't be disconnected. All right. So you need, as I was saying, business analysis core concept models. You need to be able to understand this core concept so that you'll be able to provide the needed value to your stakeholders. And these core concepts are basically 6 in numbers. Yeah, 6 or 5. Yeah, that's 6 core concept models in business analysis. So the BACCM, which is the business analysis core concepts model, is a conceptual framework for business analysis. It encompasses what business analysis is and what it means to those performing business analysis tasks, regardless of their perspective, regardless of their industry or methodology, regardless of their level within the organization. It is composed of 6 terms that have a common meaning to all business analysts and helps them discuss both business analysis and its relationships with common terminology. Each of these terms is considered to be a core concept. And the 6 concepts are: 1, change. The next is need, solution, stakeholder, value, and context. And what do I mean? And why do we call them the core concepts? No matter the initiative you are involved in as a business analyst, that initiative must be to drive a change, right? It's the purpose of the initiative will be to implement a change. And that change cannot occur if there is not a need, right? When that change has been done, we then have a solution. But who then uses that solution, or who is affected by that solution? They are stakeholders. Now, how will stakeholders say that you'll be able to solve their problem? They can only tell you that you'll be able to solve their problem, or the solution has solved their problem if if they are able to generate value or derive value from that solution. And then that value, that solution, those stakeholders or that change have to fall within a context. That means you're solving a problem within a particular context. So all of these core concept models relate with each other as a business analyst in whatever initiative you find yourself, whether it's a project, whether it's an event, as a business analyst, whether it's a shop or it's a product building or software development, or probably you are doing a process improvement. You need to understand why should we have this change? What is the need? What solution are we going to get? Who are the stakeholders involved? What value is required, and what context are we going to implement or initiate the change? An idea that practice is, and all core concepts are equal, and no core concept is and other are all equal, and they are necessary. Each of them is defined by the other 5 concepts and cannot be fully understood on all the
Your
just as
network
I
is
explained that
breaking. It's not You're breaking.
Oh, my network. Oh,
I
so
could
sorry.
hardly
That is the
hear
problem
what
with
you're
this
saying.
other. So sorry. That is the problem with this particular device I switched to. It breaks network a lot. I don't know. Is it clear now? Sorry about that.
Yes, you're clear. I can hear you perfectly well. But the other time you were
Okay.
just breaking. I couldn't hear what you were saying.
So sorry. I don't know. The new device I switched to, so the network does that way. I don't know why. Sorry. So Dora, I'll see how to keep up with it. In case it breaks, just point it out to me, please. I'll be very much glad so I can take notes. So no single concept holds greater importance or significance over any other concept. And these concepts are instrumental to understanding the type of information you need to elicit and the type of information you need to analyze. Also, the type of information you need to manage during the course of your business analysis tasks. So business analysis core concept model, as I said, there are 6 in number. We have the change. So change is the act of transformation in response to a need, right? And change works to improve the performance of an organization or of an enterprise. And then we have the need. A need is a problem or an opportunity that has to be addressed. Needs can cause changes by motivating stakeholders to act. And then after the need, we have the solution. A solution is a specific way of satisfying a context or satisfying one or more needs in a context. A solution satisfies a need by resolving a problem that is being faced by stakeholders. And then the next one leads us to what we call stakeholders. As I said, they are basically those that are affected by the change. It could be a person, or it could be a group of persons or a group of individuals that have a relationship to that need, have a relationship to that solution, and they are affected by the change. And then the 5th concept is value. Value is the worth, the importance, or the usefulness of something to a stakeholder within a particular context. And why do I keep saying within a particular context? If you are to build a loan management system, right? A system that basically disburses loan to beneficiaries. If you are unable, if you don't describe the context and the stakeholders that are involved, the solution might not deliver value to the right people. A good example is this: if we want to build a loan management system, right, for individuals, anybody, maybe you want to pay house rent, or you want to buy a car, or you want to sort out medical bills as fast as possible, just as we have REM money, whereby you can get quick and fast loans as an individual. If you want to do that, and then by the time you want to fill the loan request form, and they start telling you to provide things such as CAC, things such as TIN, things such as your tax identification number, which is your CAC, your business address, your business information, your business financial statement, it's not necessary for you. It's not important to you. It does not give you value for what you want to get done with it for. So at that moment, the solution is not delivering value to stakeholders. Even if you are a loan request applicant or someone that wants to apply for loan, you need a loan from a loan platform, but you're not getting the value for what you need it for. So in that point, the context for which the solution was built for, or the stakeholders for which the solution was built for, is not deriving value, because that's the sort of requirement or sort of details that the system is requesting are for those who have businesses, for instance, an SME or a large-scale business that have people that have organization or businesses or startups that want to collect loan for capital or for what do you call it now? I've forgotten the other types of loans you kind of collect. Capital loans for operational related matters in the office. So it does not really deliver value to those stakeholders, because the context and the stakeholders are different. So that is how all of these are tied together. And the 6th model, the 6th core concept model in business analysis is context. And context is the circumstances that influence and also that are influenced by and provide understanding of the change. Changes occur within a context, and the context is everything that is relevant to the change that is also within the environment. So that is the business analysis core concept models. And why planning or performing a task or technique as a BA, you can consider how each of these core concept models is addressed by asking questions such as, what kind of changes are we what kind of changes are we doing in these situations? One, you can also ask questions such as, what are the needs we are trying to satisfy? What are the solutions we are creating or changing? Who are the stakeholders that are involved? What do stakeholders consider to be of value? And what are the contexts that we need and the solutions that are within that context? Asking these questions and many more questions will actually help you to effectively understand the core concepts in business analysis. So that takes us to the next aspects of key terminologies and also key terminologies in business analysis and stakeholder definition or descriptions in business analysis. So what are the key terminologies in business analysis? As a business analyst, when you work in projects, as we have those in the financial industry, as we have those in the healthcare, as we have those in the educational sector or professionals in the educational industry, they have terminologies that they always relate with. And your use of these terminologies, your ability to communicate these terminologies to your stakeholders in one way or the other sends message or talks a lot about your competency within your profession as a business analyst. So if you're talking about instead of it to talk about information, how can I get this information? You could talk about things such as requirements. So we have key terminologies that we use in business analysis, and some of them are the ones I'm going to put you through in the course of this particular section of the training. So we have business analysis information, and this refers to a broad and diverse set of information. So can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So we have business analysis information. We have business analysis information, which refers to a broad and diverse set of information that business analysts analyze, transform, and report on. Examples of your BA information include your elicitation results, your requirements, your designs, your solution options, your solution scope, your change strategy. Then we have design. Design is a usable representation of a solution. You need to understand what a design is. I mean, differentiate between a design and a requirement as a BA. A design relates to the solution and your requirement relates to the needs. So a design is a usable representation of a solution, and your design focuses on understanding how value might be realized by a solution if it is built. And then we have your enterprise. Enterprise is a system of one or more organizations and the solutions they use to pursue a shared set of common goals. For the purpose of business analysis, enterprise boundaries can be defined relative to the change and need not to be constrained by the boundaries of a legal entity or probably organization. And in this instance, organization also is an autonomous group of people under the management of a single individual or a board. Then the next terminology we'll be looking at is a plan. As we all know, a plan is basically a proposal or an action or an intent for doing or achieving something. Plan describes a set of events, dependencies among the events, the expected sequence, the schedule, the results or outcomes as well. Then we have the requirement, another terminology. And your requirement is a usable representation of your need. Requirements focus on understanding what kind of value could be delivered if a particular requirement is fulfilled. And then the next terminology is risk, which is of uncertainty on the value of a change, the effect of uncertainty on a solution, and the effect of uncertainty on an enterprise. Then who are the stakeholders that business analysts collaborate with? As a BA, you tend to collaborate with a lot of stakeholders in your day-to-day activity, right? But sometimes you get to have there are different nomenclatures, or should I say roles, that these stakeholders could take up that might be confusing to you. But there's what they call a complete understanding of your stakeholders, and these stakeholders that I'll be mentioning out, no matter the initiative you find yourself, they will all fall into one or two of these stakeholders. So number one is you, who is the business analyst. You're the number stakeholder. Then we have a customer. A customer is someone who uses or may use a product or services that has been produced by the enterprise and may have a contractual or moral rights that the enterprise is obliged to meet. Simply put, and the way I basically describe my customers or understand who a customer is for myself, is that a customer is someone who has the ability to pay for your product, or who has a contractual agreement with you for your product or services. Then we have a domain subject matter expert, a DMS, a DSM. And who is a domain subject matter expert? He or she is someone or an individual that has an in-depth understanding or in-depth knowledge of a topic that is relevant to the business need or solution scope. This role is often filled by people who may be the end users or people who have in-depth knowledge of the solution. A good example of a DSME or a domain subject matter expert is, let's say we want to build a health solution, right? A solution for health industries. A doctor can be considered as a domain subject matter expert. A nurse or a pharmacist can be considered as a domain subject matter expert because he or she has an in-depth understanding, in-depth knowledge in that particular industry, in that particular sector, in that particular business, in that particular process. Then we also have end users. End users are stakeholders who directly interact with your solutions. End users can include all participants in a business process or those who use your products or solution. Your customer can also be an end user, provided that they pay for it and they use it. Some customers don't use your products, they just pay for it, they just pay for your products, and they use your services they use your products to deliver value to their own end users or to their own customer, right? Let's say for instance, you have Jumia, right? So Jumia have, for you now, you want to access something, or you want to access a particular platform, you want to buy something online, right? Instead of you taking the stress of going to Ikeja or going to Lagos Island to buy a shoe or to buy a pair of shoes, to buy your gown or your trousers or whatever thing you want to buy, instead of you taking that stress, you just want to use the services of Jumia to purchase something online and get that delivered to your home. So Jumia, in this instance, you are Jumia's in this instance, those people that sell products or those people that sell merchandise are Jumia's customers, right? But the people that mostly use Jumia are the end users, people like you and I that want to buy one or two things from Jumia. So most times end users and customers have slight relationship with each other. It could be a customer and you're also an end user, or you can be a customer and not an end user. Is that okay? So the other types of stakeholders you also interact with in the course of your project is the implementation subject matter expert. So as their name goes, don't mistake them with domain subject matter experts. Implementation are those that are involved in the implementation of the solution components. And some of the common roles that you see them are like your software developer, your solution architect, your database administrator, and all of that. They are the ones that implement the solution. And then we have the operational support, who is responsible for the day-to-day management and maintenance of the system or of the product. Then we have your project managers, which we all know, those that are tasked with the responsibilities of managing the scope, the budget, the schedule, resources, and quality and risks within the project. Another set of stakeholders you also interact with are the regulators. You might not interact with them directly, but satisfying their needs help you to interact with them indirectly. A good example is this: you are building a financial solution, fintech, as Victor mentioned. So you can't be building a financial solution without ensuring that you satisfy the requirements of CBN, who is a regulator in the financial space. So in that way, you'll be able to interact with CBN indirectly, ensuring that you satisfy their regulatory requirements. Then we have the sponsors. Sponsors are responsible for initiating the efforts to define the business need and also develop a solution that meets that need. They're basically those that pays for the implementation. They're those that brings out the capital that is used to implement a particular initiative. And we have the supplier, who is a stakeholder that is outside the boundary of your organization or of your team or of your organizational units. They basically supply, provide products or services to your organization and may have contractual or moral rights and obligations that must be considered. A good example is someone like Jumia. Before Jumia had Jumia Pay and all of that, when they were all using when they never had their own payment gateway, they were either using Paystack, or they were using QuickTeller, or they were using Remitter to perform their payments or objectives or obligations with their customers. Then we have the testers. These are people that are responsible for determining how to verify that the solution meets the requirements that is being defined by the business analyst. In most organizations, the testers are called quality assurance analysts or quality assurance developers. So they're basically quality assurance analysts or developers, or you can call them testers. So that is all about the stakeholders we interact with as business analysts in the course of an initiative, and also the key terminologies in business analysis. Then what are the various classification of requirements? There are four basic classifications of requirement. Number one is business requirements, and this is a statement of business goals, business objectives, and business outcomes that describe why a change has been initiated. And then we have the stakeholder requirements. This describes the needs of stakeholders that must be met in order to achieve the business requirements. So without you carefully and accurately describing the needs of these stakeholders, you won't be able to meet or achieve your business requirement. So your business requirements and your stakeholder requirements are all tied together, because if you don't effectively meet up with, if you don't effectively define the needs of your stakeholders as it relates with your business requirement, you might miss out on the project goals and objectives. Then we have the solution requirements. Solution requirements is basically all about the capabilities of the solution and what are the qualities of the solution. And they are into two subcategories. We have the functional requirement and we have the non-functional requirement. The functional requirement talks about the functions, the capabilities, the activities within that solution that the solution must have in terms of behavior and also information that the solution is going to manage and also use. And then we have the non-functional requirements. This talks about the quality of service. This talks about the conditions that needs to be met or the solution needs to satisfy for you to perform effectively. And the last type of requirement, or should I say the fourth schema or example or categorization of requirements, is the transition requirement. Transition requirement describe the capabilities that the solution must have and the conditions that the solution must meet to facilitate the transition from the current to the future state. A good example of your transition requirements is your training manuals. They are your user acceptance documents, for instance, your test case. And why we call them transition requirements is because they are very, very temporary. They are not permanent. They are not always there. Once you're able to use them, we get rid of them. We don't need them anymore because they serve a particular purpose in a particular phase of the solution implementation life cycle. And then that takes us to the requirements and design life cycle. How does design relate with each other, and how are they all interrelated? So the first thing, we start with your business requirements, right? And in business requirements, you're basically answering questions that has to do with, why do we want this particular solution? Why do we want it? Why do we want this particular thing to occur? And then the next thing is that you have your stakeholder requirements, where you ask, what are the needs of my stakeholders, right? When you get to understand the needs of your stakeholders, or understand your stakeholder requirements, then we have your solution requirements. We basically answers questions such as, what do I want? What does stakeholders, what do I want that will help solve the problem, or that will help solve the why? Then we also have the last one, which is your transition requirements, that talks about, what are the conditions that need to be met? What are the acceptance criteria? What are the business rules that need to be satisfied? What are the performance measures that need to be satisfied for the solution to be delivered? So from the point of business requirements down to your solution requirements, you are involved in designing the concept, designing the possible risks, possible solution alternatives. But by the time you get to your transition requirements, you begin to talk about assessing this solution, evaluating the solution. So the cycle continues until requirements are being met. And the same techniques that are used to elicit, model, and analyze both requirements and design. A requirement leads to a design, which in turn may drive the discovery and analysis of more requirements, and the BA may hand off requirements and designs to other stakeholders who can then further elaborate on the design. Whether it is the business analyst or some other role that completes the design, the business analyst often reviews the final designs to ensure that they align to the requirements. So irrespective of whoever you hand your requirements to, for that person to elaborate, sometimes you could be just focused on your user stories, models, and all of that, and then you hand it over to your product designer to design the wireframes and mockups. It is still saddled on you as a business analyst to ensure you review those designs to ensure that they properly meet up with your requirements needs. So that brings us to the end of introduction to business analysis. That's to what business analysis is. I would like to entertain questions if we have any from either of you. You could ask the questions now. Sorry, you can unmute to talk. Victor, Motun, are you there? Or is it clear enough and I can continue?
Yeah, here. I'm actually here. There's a particular one I wanted to talk. Okay, when we were talking about the stakeholders and everything, I noticed that the project manager is not part of the stakeholders, and I was wondering why.
Okay.
You know, you talked about PA, you talked about regulators, sponsors, okay, yes, I saw. I was project manager there.
So yeah, he's there, or he or she is there. So this is the project manager. So I mentioned the project manager here.
Oh, I missed that. I missed that.
Right. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Any other question or comments, Victor? Do you have any question or comments? Just indicates. Is Victor still with us?
I think he should be there.
Or is he having network issues?
You might decide not
Okay.
to stay.
I've been talking
Alright.
since. I don't know what that is. Why
You muted your
You
mic.
muted
mic
your
was
mic.
muted.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so Genesis, is it possible to get the slides?
Yes, you get the slides.
Hello?
So that is not debatable. You get the slides.
Okay.
Okay. Any other question? All right. So let's go to the final stage of the session that has to do with introduction to project management. So this is not a project management class. Let me put that disclaimer. This is not a project management class, but as a business analyst, it's very much important for you to have a good understanding of what project management is. And I hope in the course of the class, or in the next 30 to 45 minutes, as I give an overview of what business project management is, that could do justice to that. So we'll look at what project management is, just a short definition of that. Look at the software development lifecycle, which is very much important for the business analyst. Look at the waterfall model, look at the agile model, and then we conclude with the Scrum methodology overview. So let's start with what project management is. I don't know if I should ask that question, but nonetheless, I'm still going to ask that question. So
before you
Victor,
go into it, I want to ask something.
Yeah.
Is the SDLC and the Scrum, whatever, under the project management, are they all a scheme? How do you, because I notice here sometimes most of the time they ask about project management. Most vacancies are project management, and some of them there's an interface, a little bit of business analyst, a little bit of project management. And seeing this, I'm trying to ask that, do they interchange roles or what?
Okay, thank you for that. Let me respond to that. So to understand what you're asking, does business analyst and the PM, project manager, do they interface or interchange roles, right? So, and again, sometimes in job descriptions, you see that you say they want a BA who also, they want a business analyst / project manager, right? So you see all of that job descriptions when you want to apply for job. And what does that mean? In the environment we find ourselves, right, in terms of work, sometimes some organizations don't want to go through the pains of employing a business analyst and also employing a project manager when they know that probably it's just one project, and they see that the activities that the project manager will be doing is not as taxing as what the business analyst will be doing. And why it's so is because probably they have a senior business analyst or they have a project manager who is senior but might not be able to do business analysis work. So they want someone who will come in to do a little bit of project management and a little bit of business analysis. And some other times, I'm giving context before I go to the actual question you asked to answer. So some other times as well, they'll tell you that they want a hybrid, which is BA and PM. And it will be good for you to ask, what ratio am I going to be doing, or what are the ratio distribution for that? Sometimes you find yourself, you say that it's 60% PM you're going to be doing and 40% business analysis work you'll be doing. Or you'll be doing 70% of business analysis work and 30% of project management work. So it all depends. But why do they always, most times, or not most times, sometimes tie business analysis to project management? It's basically because as a BA, you work in projects, right? And you are supposed to understand what projects are or how projects run, the project phases and all of that. Now, for most companies, it could be a strategic move for them. And when I say strategic move for them, in the sense that they want to cut down on costs, right? They want to cut down on costs, so sort of recruiting the BA and also recruiting a PM to work in a project. They want to cut down on costs because they feel that you might not be really doing much. So for them to actually see the value of what they're paying for, they get you to do both PM and BA. For some other ones, They want to see how to. They are not so big on projects in terms of project management. They just want someone who have an idea of project management, so that in case the PM, that is the project manager, is not available, or the PM can easily assign some project management tasks for you to do. Things like, for instance, most jobs that talks about you being a PM, I'm having to do both PM and BA. They will want you to do things, a lot of things that involves planning of the project, to be involved in planning of the project, to be involved in drafting the RACI metrics, to be involved in doing your communication plans. And all of these are things that your project managers are supposed to do. But they want you as a BA to be able to have understanding of all of this, so that in case you are tasked or you are required to do this, you can step in and do them effectively. But get to understand, business analysis is different from project manager, but they all work hand in hand. Let me use another sector to give you an instance. Let me use the medical industry. It's just, for instance, if you want to go to the hospital, right? You have a nurse, you have a doctor. They play different roles, isn't it? Most times in the hospital, is the nurse that gives you the injection, isn't it? But that does not mean that the doctor cannot give you injection. But why is it that the nurse has to be the one to give you the injection? They have their reasons. And also, there's your diagnosis. Is the doctor that carries out the diagnosis, asks you questions, get to understand what the problem is with you and all of that. And your nurse is involved with, doing your triage for you, checking your vitals and all of that. That does not take away the fact that a doctor can also check your vitals for you. But the fact is, these roles are actually clearly stated out, and they're different from each other. But as a doctor, you should be able to, you ought to know how to do your how to check vitals for patients. You ought to know how to give injections for patients. So just see it that way. A nurse may not perfectly know how to do diagnosis or thereabout. Even in terms of surgery, they have nurses that are involved in surgery as well. But the doctors also have their own specific role. That does not mean they don't have an idea of what the nurses do as well. So see that as a BAPM role. The business analyst has his own specialty, whereby you can't tell a project manager to do business analysis. He or she is going to struggle a lot with it. He or she will struggle and struggle. But a business analyst can actually manage a project as a project manager. So that is the upper hand you have as a business analyst. And that is why for every of my training, I tend to give you an introduction to what project management is, because you could find yourself in a place whereby the project management is not so strong. You can assist or guide in how things ought to be done. Does that answer your question?
Perfectly well. I like the illustration of the nurse and the doctor, because it gave a clear view of what the two roles are. So, and to understand that a BA can actually work as a project manager, but a project manager can actually struggle to do the BA role. Makes a complete sense.
Okay, thank you for that. So we're going to launch in. So we just spend like 30-45 minutes to get done with this. So introduction to project management. What is project management? I asked that question earlier, and I'm asking it again. Just 1 minute. I want someone to just respond to what project. Okay. Motun, you responded to what business analysis is, right? Victor, just respond. What's your understanding of what project management is? Just 1 minute or less.
Okay. Project management, I think it involves the processes involved in starting, completion, directing a new project in an organization. From the planning of the business case to the cost benefits and down to the interaction with all the stakeholders to the very end of the project.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Victor, for that. I really appreciate that definition. So, as you said, managing and interacting with stakeholders, they are very key in terms of project management. But to give a complete explanation, so I'll say a project management is a temporary endeavor to undertaking to create unique products, services, or resources. And this could be project development of a software for an improved business process, or construction related, or probably really project management is the application of knowledge, is the application of skills, it's also the application of tools and techniques to project activities to meet your project requirements. You have the knowledge, you have the skills. Some of the skills they use is Microsoft Project. You have the knowledge, you have the skills in terms of and all of that. Some of the tools they use is Microsoft Projects to plan their project. And some of the techniques they use is collaboration. Some of the techniques they also use is stakeholder analysis and all of that. So you have all of this and you put them together within a project activities to ensure that you meet the requirements of the project. And the requirement of the project has to do with the project costs, that is the project budgets, the project time, the project scope, and the project resources. So you put all of those knowledge, you put all of those skills, you gather all those tools, and also you assemble your techniques into use to ensure you meet up with your project budgets, your project resources, you manage your project resources, you manage your project timelines, and you also manage your project scope. So project management processes fall into 5 buckets. Number 1 is the initiation. The next is the planning, and then the execution, the monitoring and control, and then the project closeout. So you initiate the project, you plan the project, you execute the project, you monitor and control the project, and then you close the project. Now, that is just what project management is. There's a lot of things about project management. You can take a project management course for 1 month, you can take it for 17 hours, you can go for PMP certification. It's actually very, very interesting. But as I said in the beginning, I give a disclaimer, this is just an overview of project management, but we're going to dwell more in terms of SDLC, Waterfall, Agile, and Scrum. So what is SDLC? Software Development Lifecycle. This is very, very important for you to know as a business analyst, because you could find yourself working in initiatives that has to do with the development and implementation of a software of a software solution. So SDLC is a process that consists of a series of planned activities to develop or alter the software products. The SDLC aims to produce a high-quality software that meets or exceeds customer expectations and also reaches expectations in terms of completion of the project within times and also cost estimates. We have 6 processes or 6 life cycle that a particular software development goes through. Number 1 is the planning, where the software development is being planned. Everybody within the team knows what they're going to be doing within that cycle. Then we have the analysis, where the BA comes in to carry out every analysis of all the requirements. At the point of planning, let me see if I have this down. So, okay. No need to, I want to finish. So we have the planning, analysis, design, implementation, testing and integration, and also the maintenance phase. So these are the 6 phases of your software development life cycle. Then for a BA, there are different responsibilities and tasks that are required of you to perform at every stage of the software development life cycle. Number 1, at the planning phase, the BA is involved in planning with the project manager and other stakeholders to understand the amount of work to be done. You also get input from the elicitations that have been carried out. So at the planning phase as a BA, that is where you carry out your requirement elicitation. You plan with other stakeholders in terms, your project managers in terms of the project planning, and then you elicit your requirements. And on the analysis phase, this is where you solely own everything that happens on the analysis stage because you are the business analyst. So it's at this point you analyze all the requirements you've been able to elicit from your stakeholders. You document those requirements into various specifications and models. And then at the design phase, where we have the interface design, the UI design, the BA helps in defining the design options which the product designers would use to design the look and feel of the solution. And in a situation where there is no product designer, the BA will be responsible for this particular task. Now, at the implementation phase, which is where the software developers begin to write the code, begin to implement the code, the BA works with the engineering team to provide better clarity on the components and context of the requirements and designs specified that has been modeled. Now, on the testing and integration, at the testing and integration stage, the BA works with the testers to spec out the acceptance criteria and can also participate in testing activities such as UAT, such as regression testing, such as solution reviews. Then at the maintenance stage is where the system has been deployed and is live, and then is undergoing subsequent maintenance. And when I say maintenance, it's what we see whenever we see they say a new update to WhatsApp has come. There's a new update to Facebook. Download the new update. And when you, I don't know, whenever you go to download these updates or updates on WhatsApp or Telegrams or Teams or what have you, I don't know if you take your time to read the new feature or the new updates. So
you're breaking. I can't hear you. You're talking about maintenance.
Yes.
When the WhatsApp and all that. That's the last thing I heard.
Okay, how about now? Is it clear?
It's clear.
Okay. So in terms of maintenance, a good example of the maintenance phase is when you see that WhatsApp will tell you that there's a new version of WhatsApp that is available. Please update your this particular version of WhatsApp will expire in 30 days or in 15 days. I don't know if you guys, whenever you want to update your WhatsApp, if you go ahead to check what are the updates, you realize that they said we've sort out the bugs, we've rectified the bugs, or they can tell you that probably we have added new features and all of that. So that phase of the project is what they call the maintenance phase, or of any solution is what they call the maintenance phase. And in this phase, you are performing a lot of solution evaluation as a business analyst to know what are the limitations of the solution, because solution is already live, to know if there are other ways the solution can deliver more value to stakeholders. So that different things these are kind of the things you are doing as a business analyst at the maintenance phase of the software development life cycle. That takes us then to the two different types of models in project management. We have the waterfall model and we have the agile model. So looking at the waterfall model was the first process model to be introduced in project management. It is also referred to as a linear sequential life cycle model. And it is very simple to understand and use. In a waterfall model, each phase must be completed before the next phase can begin, and there is no overlapping in the phases. So you need to ensure that you complete a particular phase before you begin the next phase. And this means that at any phase in the development process, you only begin once the previous phase has been completed. In waterfall model, the phases do not overlap, and every software that is being developed is different and requires a suitable SDLC approach to be followed based on the internal and external factors. Some situations where we use the waterfall model, or where we say waterfall model is most appropriate, is when the requirements are very well documented, clear, and fixed. Whenever we want the requirements to be very well documented, to be clear, and to be fixed ahead of time, we use the waterfall model in the project. Whenever product definition is stable, we use a waterfall model. Whenever the technology we are going to use to implement is understood and is not dynamic, then we use the waterfall model. Whenever there are no ambiguous requirements, we use the waterfall model. When there's an ample resources with required expertise that are available to support the products, we use the waterfall model. And then when the project is also short, we use the waterfall model. Now, the waterfall model phases has 6 phases. Number 1 is the requirement gathering and analysis phase. In a project, when a project that is using waterfall model, the team or the project team cannot go and start implementation or system design if the requirement gathering and analysis have not been completed. Then we have the system design phase, where the requirement specifications from the first phase are studied in this phase and the system design is prepared. And then we have the implementation phase, and thereafter we have the integration and testing phase, we have the deployment phase, and then we have the maintenance phase. So those are the 6 phases of waterfall models. And what are the advantages and disadvantages of software of waterfall model? One of the advantages of waterfall model is that it is simple and easy to understand and also easy to use. Each phase has a specific deliverable. Phases are processed and completed one at a time. It has clearly defined stages. It works well for smaller projects where requirements are very small and processes and results are well documented. For the disadvantages, there's no working software. No working software is produced until late during the life cycle of the project. So if you are a user that wants to use a project, or you're a customer that wants to use a product, you'll be able to have access to any component or part of the product or of the solution until when the project has been completed, which is late at the point of the project. And it has a high amount of risks and uncertainty. It is not good for a model. It is not a good model for complex and object-oriented projects. It's a poor model for long and ongoing projects. It is difficult to measure progress within a stage and cannot accommodate changing requirements. So those are just the advantages and disadvantages of waterfall model. That takes us to the agile model, which is very popular now and which is common in most organizations. And I bet you need to ensure you understand agile model, because most times when you apply for a job or you find yourself going for interviews, they want to know if you understand agile or you've worked in an agile environment. So agile model is a model. Agile model is a combination of iterative and incremental processes with focus on process adaptability and customer satisfaction by rapid delivery of working software products. So the core things you need to, or the key things you need to know in agile model is iterative, that is iteration, incremental processes, building incrementally, and also adaptability and flexibility to ensure that there's rapid delivery of a working software product. Agile methods breaks the product into small incremental builds. Some of the examples of agile models are Scrum, Kanban, Extreme Programming, Dynamic System Development Method, Lean, Crystal, and what have you. So the agile model uses an adaptive approach where there is no detailed planning and there is clarity on future tasks only in respect of what features need to be developed. There is feature-driven development and the team adapts to the changing product requirements dynamically. The product is tested very frequently through the release iterations, minimizing the risks of any major failures in the future. Customer interaction is one of the core backbone of the agile methodology, and open communication as well with minimum documentation are typical features of agile development environment. The agile team works in close collaboration with each other and are most often located in same geographical location. Now, that then takes us to agile values. So there's what we call agile manifesto, where a set of stakeholders sat to come up with agile values and agile principles. So agile values, agile has 9 values, right? If I'm not wrong, let me confirm. Okay, Agile has 4 values, sorry. And the values are individuals and interactions. So Agile favors individuals and interactions over documentation. Working software is also a value of Agile. This talks about the team demoing the working software and as the best means of communication with the customers to understand their requirements instead of just depending on an exhaustive documentation. Agile also favors customer collaboration, as the requirements cannot be gathered completely in the beginning of the project due to various factors. Continuous customer interaction is very important to get proper product requirements. Agile also responds to change, as in continuous responding to change. And that is one of the things you talk about Agile, flexibility. And Agile development is focused on quick responses to change and continuous development. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of Agile model? Just as we looked at the waterfall model. Agile, in terms of advantages, it promotes teamwork and cross-training. Functionalities can be developed rapidly and demonstrated. Suitable, we have suitable, they are suitable for fixed and changing requirements. They give flexibilities to your developers and resource requirements are minimum. And then what are some of the disadvantages of Agile model? It is not suitable for handling complex dependencies. There's more risks of sustainability and maintainability. Agile is very difficult to master, and there's a very high individual dependency since there is minimum documentation that is generated. And what do I mean by that? If the business analyst or the product manager is not available, the project gets to stall because the only person that can do that is the product manager or the business analyst. And because of that dependency, that becomes a disadvantage for Agile model. Now, Scrum methodology. As I said earlier, Scrum methodology is an example or falls into the Agile model. Scrum is a framework within which people can address complex adaptive problems while productively and creatively delivering products of the highest possible value. Scrum is lightweight. It is very easy to understand, and most times for you to get hold of Scrum, it could be very, very difficult. Scrum teams are made up of 3 core teams. 4 core teams. Sorry, 3 core teams. One is the owner. Number 2 is the Scrum Master, who acts as the project manager. Number 3 is the technical team is developer, the engineering team, the business analysts, other team members. Then we have events that occur in Scrum, or you can call it meetings or activities or stages or phases. One is sprint planning. It's the very first event or stage in Scrum methodology. You need to plan your sprint. Then you have the daily Scrum meeting. It's also your daily time-up. You team needs to talk about what happened, what they did yesterday, what they'll be doing today, and if there are any obstacles, right? They have the sprints that occurs within a 1 to 4 week period. Some people sprint for 2 weeks, some sprint for 3 weeks, some sprint for 4 weeks. Sprint is basically your implementation phase, right? So some people have 2 weeks implementation, some people have 3 weeks, 4 weeks, some people have 1 week implementation. Then we have the sprint review and your sprint retrospective. Now, for the Scrum framework or Scrum methodology, I'll just give you guys a end-to-end rundown of what Scrum is, from the point of sprint planning down to your sprint. So, as I said, sprints is a terminology that is used to refer to implementation. So sprint is your implementation. That's what they call sprint in Scrum. So for your Scrum, in a Scrum team, it all starts from eliciting requirements, right? You get inputs from executives, from the team, from stakeholders, from customers, from users. All of these inputs are what we call requirements, right? Now, these requirements are then placed in a product backlog. This product backlog could be an Excel sheet, it could be Jira, it could be a PowerPoint presentation, it could be Azure DevOps, it could be any form, it could be Asana or any project management tool, or maybe any tool that you want to use to basically list out your product backlog or your requirements. You list them out, or your HLR log. Now, these requirements are placed in your product backlog, and they are ranked in order of priority. It's a rank list of what is required, the features, and the story. So a rank of them, the one that should come first, second, and third. Now, when the product manager has placed all of this, the product owner rather, the product owner in this instance is the domain subject matter expert in most cases. He's someone that has a very good understanding of the industry, a deep knowledge of the industry, of the business, of the market, of the solution. In this case, it could be a medical doctor, or it could be a pharmacist building a medical solution. Now, he or she places these requirements in a product backlog. Now, the next thing is to have your sprint planning meeting, which is the very first event that occurs in Scrum. This sprint planning meeting is where the team now plans what should we build in this very sprint, in this current sprint. That means in the next 2 weeks, or in the next 3 weeks, or in the next 1 week, or in the next 4 weeks, what should we build? So the team will now select from this product backlog the most important features or requirements that the implementation team needs to implement or build in the current sprint. When they've been able to select that those requirements or items from the product backlog, then we have the sprint backlog. Remember, here we have the product backlog, and here we now have the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog is what the team is going to be building for that current sprint. So if we selected 5 requirements or 5 items from the product backlog, and we put those 5 items or requirements in the sprint backlog, at the end of that sprint, we should have built or implemented those 5 items or 5 requirements. So let's say, if you say in this current sprint, you want to build the login with email address, we want to build the login with Facebook, I want to build the login with LinkedIn. These are the 3 features we want to build for the product. At the end of that sprint, we should be able, when the team comes together, they should be able to say, yes, we have completely implemented, or we have a working software of login where people can actually log in with Facebook, log in with LinkedIn, or log in with their email address. You can actually test that and see that that is functional and that is working at the end of the sprint. And that is our backlog. Now, when the team have how is backlog a particular thing,
it's breaking. I can't hear you again.
Star.
I can't hear you again. It's breaking.
So sorry. So sorry. So sorry. How about now? Is this still breaking?
No, it's better. I can hear you.
Is this still breaking?
I can't.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So sorry that it was breaking. So during the sprint period, the Scrum Master is in charge of the sprint period, which is the period of 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, depending on the sprint length. And the Scrum Master serves as the product manager, and the major responsibility of the Scrum Master is to remove every impediment and that encounters the team, or the team is encountering. Roadblocks, probably the team needs approval from the head of a particular department to deploy, or the team needs approval to do this, or the team needs a particular resource to get done with. So the Scrum Master ensures that this team functions effectively by removing roadblocks. And then the sprint also meets every day to discuss on their daily Scrum. Every 24 hours, every day. Daily Scrum is where the team talks about what they did yesterday, what we'll be doing today, and if there are any obstacles or any roadblocks along the way, or any hindrances. that is done every day, every 24 hours within that sprint. Now, the Scrum Master goes ahead to come up with some charts, such as your burn down charts, your velocity, to know how effective the sprint. And at the end of that sprint, we now have our sprint review, where we basically review what has been done. The implementation team review with the customer to ensure that it meets with the customer requirement or the customer needs. If it doesn't meet with the customer needs, the team goes ahead to sprint again to ensure to accommodate those feedbacks that have been provided by the customer. And if it meets the customer needs, the product or the work that was being itemized then becomes a finished work. Now, after we must have shipped that finished work, in this case, could be that login feature that has to do with logging in with email address, logging in with LinkedIn, logging in with Facebook. After that's done, then we then have our sprint retrospective. And sprint retrospective is where the team look at what did we do well in this past sprint? What didn't we do well in this past sprint? And where can we improve? So what did we do well? A retrospective of what went well in the sprint that just ended, and also what did not go well. Is it that we don't have effective team collaboration? Is it that the staging environment wasn't stable? So you get to gather all those feedbacks, and then you now look ahead to the next sprint. What should we change? What should we do better in the next sprint? So that is what your Scrum framework is all about. This is just an overview, a straightforward, direct, detailed explanation of what Scrum is and what your Scrum framework is. That brings us to the end of introduction to business analysis and also overview of project management. I don't know if you have any question. I'll be very much glad to entertain.
Thank you so much. This has been an interesting meeting or lecture. What I want to know is that does the project manager go through the software development lifecycle? Do they also undergo the waterfall and agile methodology, and do they go through this Scrum methodology too? You know, I know that from what you just said, Scrum is more like Scrum implies the project management methodology, right? Or is the project manager? The Scrum Master is a project manager,
yes,
right?
So the Scrum Master is a project manager within this environment.
Okay. So I just want to know that all the things you said when you started with the project management, does the project manager go through all those topics you mentioned under the project management?
Okay, so first of all, you can't be an effective project manager if you don't understand all of these things that I said. So if you're a project manager, you must know and understand all of everything that has to do with project manager. Just as if you're a business analyst, you must know and understand what business analysis is, right? So when you talk about waterfall model, talk about agile model. If you're a project manager and you find yourself in a waterfall environment, if you're a project manager and you find yourself in a waterfall environment, you will certainly ensure that for every phase of the waterfall model that has to do with requirements gathering, that has to do with integration and testing, has to do with deployment, maintenance, has to do with design, you are ensuring that the team follows along within the project timeline. You draft out the project plan, the timeline on the deliverables and milestones for the projects, for the waterfall models or the project phases that has to talk about the requirement gathering. Okay, as a project manager, you talk about, okay, the requirement gathering it's going to take 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 month or 1 week. So you ensure that the team adheres to the project timelines, right? Whether it is agile model, you ensure that the team adheres to the project timelines, the team adheres to the scope of the project. As a project manager, you ensure that the team adheres, that there's no resource overhead, there's no resource, there's no key man risk in terms of your resources as well. So the project manager does all of this in a project, even in the Scrum as well. In the Scrum methodology, the project manager is involved as a Scrum master to ensure that there's no roadblock, to ensure that the the sprint velocity, the burn down charts are as accurate and as effective as planned initially. So all of that are things that the project manager gets done within a project, right? And as I said earlier, you can't be a project manager and you say you don't know Scrum, you don't know Waterfall, you don't know Agile. Then there's nothing, just like you say you're a business analyst and you don't know how to elicit requirements, and you don't know how to document requirements, you don't know how to analyze requirements. So that is it. Did I answer your question?
Sort of. I want, when you started the project management, when you went into the introduction to project management, right? There were some topics under it. Are those topics part of the project management?
Okay, let me bring up the slide and
yes, please bring up the slide, because under it you had the software development lifestyle and life cycle.
Are you talking about this?
Yeah, let's start with is that how it is? Okay, yes. Are this under the project management?
Yes, so you can't talk about project management without talking about waterfall and agile. They are models. Remember, I call them models within project management. Project management is very vast. Do you understand? Project management is how you manage a project from beginning to the very end, right? Yes. And for you to manage those projects, you need to ask yourself, what methodology are we using, right? What model are we using? If it is a software, you need to understand what is the life cycle for this software. So you're going to know how to effectively map out the timelines and deliverables and milestones for each of every task, each of every activity. Do you understand? So all of this make up project management. They are parts of project management, but they are not all. Project management is not limited to just software development lifecycle. It's not limited to waterfall, agile model. It's not limited to Scrum methodology. It's very vast. It's a field on its own, as you know. But for the benefits of business analysis, for you to be a business analyst, you need to understand these things about project management.
So we are just scratching the surface. This is more like scratching the surface.
Yes. That's why I give a disclaimer that this is not a project management class. But as a business analyst, you need to know these things. These are the things you need to know as a business analyst as relates to project management. If you look, I had not talked about project planning. Project planning can take about 2 weeks to explain. It can take about 10 hours to explain. Do you get the point? Project tax, whatever, can take about 4 hours to explain. Do you get the point? Project meeting plannings can take about 3 hours to explain. But this particular session is just an overview of what project management is, that is going to benefit you for a business analyst, so that as a BA, as you are going into projects to work with a team, you understand that, okay, these are the different phases of this project, and this is what is required of me as a business analyst in each of these phases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that clear enough?
Yes, it is. At least I know that what you just explained is just it's just scratching the surface. It's not the real, it's not, we didn't go into it. We just scratched the surface, just to have an overview.
Yeah.
Of, to be able to have
Yes.
an overview of the projects, how to, as a BA, have an overview of what the project management is all about. It's not the real detail, so it's okay. That explains everything.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much for that. So, any other question?
So what are we
questions,
supposed to? No question.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much. I'll stop recording now so you can also discuss some other things as regards to the program.
Okay.